Hello, and welcome to another edition of Thought Leaders Live, where we talk with thought leaders in business, life, and all points in between. Today, we have Dr. Carrie LaDue, a leadership coach and founder of Limitless Performance, where she helps high achieving executives build calm, focused, high performing teams. Carrie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Greg. Happy to be here.
Let's jump right into it because we've got a lot of great topics to discuss, and I'm very excited to get to many of these. Carrie, can you tell us a little bit about your own personal journey and limitless performance?
Yes. So I became obsessed with leadership very early on in my career. I don't know if it's just in DNA, like the DNA of some people. Um, but very early on, I was fascinated around how do you guide and help other people? And how do you help them really unleash their potential? How do you really help them become the most effective, best versions of themselves? And that passion for that it's never died. So in every single portion of my career, from early on as a teacher, I moved into coaching other teachers very quickly. Then I became a principal coach. Then I was working with superintendents. Then I was working with state level, education agencies, and just always working with the people, moving as far to the top as I could get. And same when I moved into business. I have just realized through the years that the people at the top, the culture they create, how they behave, how they show up, what their emotional state is, what their skill set is, what their emotional intelligence is like, it impacts every single asset of a company or an organization. Nonprofit, for profit, doesn't matter.
Right.
And so working with leaders to help them be calm, grounded, skillful, effective leaders. Doing that work well, to me, is critical across industry, across the globe. When we do that well and leaders are living a fulfilled life, they're balanced, they're happy, they're healthy, they're skillful, it has this ripple effect that can change the lives and the families of those employees. And I think it's such a massive responsibility for those of us in leadership that sometimes we don't even recognize, right? We can say the words that we say, we can absolutely light somebody on fire in a good way and motivate them and make them believe that they're capable of things they never thought they could do before. Or we could totally unknowingly and often unintentionally, our words can have the opposite effect where they are completely demotivated, demoralized. And whichever way you go as a leader, they're going to take those things home. And how they're feeling about their career and their professional life, it's going to impact their partnerships, their marriages, their children, their free time, all of those things. And so it always comes back to helping leaders be the most effective they can be. It's power that we carry, and I think sometimes a lot of people don't recognize quite how powerful you are when you're in a position of leadership.
Emotional intelligence, some of the other attributes you mentioned, they might be construed as soft skills by a lot of executives. And correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe the executive mindset's like, look, I'm too busy for that right now. I'll get to that when I've got the ship righted. Do you run into that? And do you think that they've got their priorities mixed up?
All the time I run into that. Yeah. When you, especially if you're a business owner, or you're responsible for revenue generation, that is, and you can view that as like, well, I'm saving jobs, I'm saving the company, I'm doing right by my people. I'm going to put all my attention in there because, we're going to grow, or, if either because it's growth, because you want to grow and you want to scale the business, or it's like, we have to grow, or I'm going to have to lay people off. And that's noble. You should obviously be trying to save jobs of the people, in your company and whatnot. But the challenge is that if you are not attending to becoming a better leader and guide and unleashing human potential, you will lose your top performing people. They will walk right out the door. High performers won't tolerate if you have no emotional intelligence, if you don't give them opportunities to grow, if you don't help them stretch, they will go somewhere else. And that cost to you is significant. It's several hundreds of thousands of dollars when you lose your top performers in recruitment, in training, right? So they don't usually see that connection, but you've got to put time into not only building your own leadership skills, but building the leadership of everybody else in your company. Because when you have top performers like across the board, that is what you need to really scale and what you need to really grow revenue. So it can be really short-sighted, unintentional, of course. But yeah, it's both and. You don't just get to pick profits, revenue, sales, not pay attention to people, culture, training, and maintaining top talent.
Well, it's interesting to me, and we'll get into some of these topics, but I just want to. I'm trying to almost kind of quantify what you think the split is in terms of people who are doing what you're talking about and trying to develop themselves as a leader versus somebody who is not of that mindset. And I'm thinking specifically in manufacturing, where it's a male dominated industry where we have a lot of leaders getting promoted who come into the business as engineers, and I'm generalizing a little bit here, come in as engineers, focus on product, focus on the specifics of manufacturing the product, all the processes, and not really paying attention or understanding the human side of the business. And I guess I'm just trying to get a feel for, are you seeing this as like a shift away from those types of leaders and the plane starting to slowly shift? Or is it, this is still a very small percentage of the leaders you run into are thinking in the terms you're describing and what you see as an effective leader?
It's too small of a percentage currently that are really focused on up-leveling their own leadership and who really understand that they are culture creators. I do see it with younger generations of entrepreneurs. I've worked with some incredible CEO and founders that are like in their mid 30s right now that for some reason, maybe it's generationally or whatnot, are more tuned in to the people side of the business and why that matters. A lot of my clients are on the other side. They're closer to exit, retirement, 2-3 years out, leaving their business. And it might just be growing up with a different model of leadership and what they experienced when they were an employee. I think that plays a role. It's called programming, right? We kind of learn what we've lived. So I think maybe there's a shift with younger entrepreneurs, which is good and great. It's not enough though, and it does need to happen across industry. It doesn't really matter if your background is in engineering and maybe you love computers more than people, or if you're a creative and you're in marketing. Like, it is your responsibility to take care of your people and to create a culture where everybody can thrive. We spend, oh my God, what percentage of time do we spend working, right? So everybody deserves to have an environment in which they are not only allowed to grow, but encouraged to grow and to pursue what makes them really happy and fulfilling in life. My humble beliefs, obviously.
Well, I agree with you. And I think it's human nature too. I mean, you're talking about being a good human, good person on top of being a good professional leader. Let's jump into the topic. The name of it is "Stop Answering Every Question of the show." And what do you mean by that? Let's stop answering every question.
Yeah. So every single client that has come to me over the last 10 years, when we first start working together, they talk about how they are the firefighter or they're the chief everything officer. They feel like they're the answering machine. And what has happened in their businesses is that, when you're a new business and you launch, you're everything. You are CEO, CTO, CFO, you wear all of the hats, and it's necessary, that's what you have to do. So we build this identity where we have to attend to all of the things, and it's a form of a control. And some people don't like that word. It can have a negative connotation, but it is, right? Like we're the puppeteer, we're making all these things happen. Well, a business gets to a certain point where that role has to shift in a dramatic and fundamental way. And you cannot continue to scale or grow your business if you don't make that shift to more of an architect of the company. Otherwise, you become a bottleneck, right? If all approvals run through you, if every question, every problem comes to you, and what's happened is the employees, nobody's fault. It just kind of happens. Like nobody's meaning for this to happen, but they've built this habit where if they have a problem or there is an issue, they come to you as the owner or the CEO, you solve the problem, right? And there becomes a feedback loop. You get a dopamine hit because you feel good because you just solved somebody's problem. Yay, me, I'm a good leader. And they become kind of helpless and dependent on you. And as you can imagine, that's going to create a growth ceiling for your company. And it's also going to make you, as the founder or the executive leader, hate your life and exhausted at the end of the day because you're going to feel like, I can't get anything high leverage done. I never get to work on anything strategic. I'm pulled into last minute meetings. I'm answering Slack. I'm answering everybody need. All of your energy is just going out, going out, going out. And you're not actually focused on like the North Star of the business and where you're trying to go to. And you do that for enough days, weeks, and months, your bucket's empty and you're like, what am I even doing this for? And I kid you not, I can't. There's so many times where clients, when we start work together, what they have said to me is like, I'm really just thinking I'm going to go be a bartender in the Bahamas. That's the point that it's come to. And so it's this cycle that we have to break in order to remove the ceiling on revenue growth, in order to help them become an architect versus the chief everything officer. You've got to stop being the answer to all the questions.
Well, let me probe a little bit more on the types of questions that you want to offload and have your employees answer on their own, because in my mind there's a couple that really jump out at me, and one is the how do I do this, the process questions. And I think for us internally, we really try and define processes and make it clear how you do things, so there's resources to go to figure things out. And then the second one is more strategic. How do I problem solve and develop the strategies to answer the question on my own?
Mhm.
Is that kind of the two types of questions you're talking about, or are there more?
No, I think they do fall into those categories. Maybe there's more, but I mean, that's definitely the bulk of it. It's the how to, which you can handle with SOPs and things of that nature, right? It's more transactional kinds of questions. And then what you're talking about is developing that muscle of critical thinking, a sense of ownership over outcomes. And also, in order for me to do that, I have to know that it's safe for me to take risks. Because if I am asking my team to be critical thinkers and make decisions and have autonomy and come to the table with solutions, and I'm going to build that muscle. Well, if they start bringing those ideas to me and I'm shooting them down, I am judging them, I am saying why it's wrong and why my way is better. Do that once, and guess what? That door is closed for a lot of people. Some people have thicker skin, but for a lot of people, they're like, you said you wanted this one thing, but your behavior taught me something different.
Right.
So you have to be okay with people taking a different path than you would. And that's really hard when you're the expert in something. And you're like, but I know, I can see the way to get this done in 3 steps, and your idea is maybe 20 steps, and how do I grapple with that and be okay with that to give you enough space to execute in your way and be okay if it's not perfect? Because you're never going to learn otherwise. And that's why it's so challenging for people to make this shift, is because that feels scary. You might not get a great result. It might be okay or so, and we might have to adjust on the back end. Are you the kind of person that can sit in that discomfort? And a lot of us can't. As
Yeah.
humans, we want to control. We want to know the outcome is like guaranteed. So it can be really challenging work to, it's like identity shift, habit shifting,
Yeah.
you approach your people shifting. It can be a big deal.
Yeah, I struggle with that, absolutely. I'm gonna throw a little curveball before we get to the 3 items at you. In terms of, executives now, there's increasing awareness of neurodiversity and how people approach things differently, and this idea of, I'm just gonna empower you to go out and just answer the question on your own. Some people might not be as equipped uh, to do that on their own as others. So, are you taking into account neurodiversity and how people approach problem solving as you're starting to empower executives?
Yes, I love this topic because I think my own eyes and my own growth and leadership over the last couple of years in this area, I've had to work in this area myself. I've had to get smarter about it to be a better leader. A younger version of me really thought that I'm pretty organized and systematic and good at kind of mapping out of here's what I need to accomplish, here's how I break it down, and so I was like, well, that's shouldn't everybody do that?
Right.
Here's the
Right.
goal. How do you make this happen? And of course, over time, I learned that not everybody thinks through things the same way. And so I think there's two key pieces here. One, of course, is making sure that you've got people, the right people in the right roles, right? That is key. If I have somebody in front of me and I get to know people very deeply when I'm onboarding, when I'm hiring them, when I'm onboarding them, and I'm trying to think about, you want people to be stretched, like out of their comfort zone, but not stretched so far they're going to snap.
Yeah.
So that's actually step one, is getting right people in the right roles. But then the next piece here is being okay with learning to coach your people versus, dictate and tell. So you can just really ask simple questions like, are checking for understanding. Are you clear on this outcome? Okay, tell me how you understand it. How do you see it? What's not clear? Right. And checking for understanding. I can't tell you how many times I learned that lesson the hard way. Because in my brain, where we were going was crystal clear. And I thought the words that came out of my mouth were too. To find out a couple of weeks later when the project is delayed, it was not that clear.
Yeah.
So checking for understanding. And then I love asking them, so talk me through your process here. How might you approach this? And how are you, is that comfortable for you? What resources are you going to need? How do you want me to help you? How do you not want me to help you? Right? These are adults, and I'm trying to get them to grow and stretch. And so I'm not going to assume what support looks like to you. I'm going to have you say to me, it's really helpful if you're going to take a look at this. Let me send you a draft or do that. I want to actually like take this and run with this, and I'll come back to you when I need help. And you have to give them that space and that autonomy and trust that they know themselves better than you do versus really like dictating how this process needs to go down. So sometimes it's a lot about slowing down at the beginning of delegating something out. In fact, all the time it's slowing down to speed up.
Hmm.
What most of us do is we don't get on the same page first. We don't check for understanding. We don't clarify roles, responsibilities. How are we going to check in? What's quality look like? And then we're like, why did that go off the rails again? And then we start to tell ourselves that this employee is ineffective, right?
Right.
Not fair. You're actually not doing what you could be doing and should be doing as a leader.
Right. I love all that, and I really like the idea of, my wife is a, parent coach and uses curiosity a lot, and I like what you said there about, like, "How would you do this? What is your process?" I think that's really smart.
Yeah.
Let's jump into some of these, items that you talked about, that you wanna get to, such as breaking the rescue reflex, how to interrupt control patterns in real time during high pressure moments.
Mhm. Yeah. So once we've created a habit for anything in our lives, there's neural circuitry where this particular situation happens, it triggers, here's how we respond and behave to it. So after years and years of diving in to solve problems for all of our employees, it's unconscious. We don't even need, we don't know that we're doing it. It's just become habitual. And the most interesting thing about this is the brain science. So every time we solve a problem, we get a dopamine hit. We get that neuro feel good chemical. Somebody liked my LinkedIn post, I get a dope. It's the same thing. So it becomes really, really ingrained. So our reacting to things versus responding, our chemistry is working against us. So I think step one is knowing that, you're not just a bad human or a bad leader. Your brain is making it difficult for you to create a new pattern where instead, I love what you said, you're curious. So you have to be aware of that. And then what I like to think about is what are kind of the trigger situations where you catch yourself diving in to offer the solution. And usually that's going to be tied to a couple of different things, either an area that you are really an expert in. You have for years honed your ability here. And so you know what to bring to the table, you know what to do. That's naturally going to be like, well, of course, here's what we do in this situation. Or high pressure. So imagine you're pitching a large proposal, you're moving up mid market. The potential here for revenue is significant. It could change the outcome of the business. There's a pressure element to it. And you feel a sense of ownership over that as the leader for it to go well. In other words, to control the outcome. And so that is when we're in those two situations, we're highly susceptible to stealing opportunities from our employees, from building their skills and really shining and showing what they have to offer. So if you know that those are the two situations to be aware of, now you can start to kind of watch yourself and go, okay, wait a minute, I'm about to take over. I'm about to save the deal. I'm about to undermine my employee who prepped for weeks for this or whatever it is. It starts with knowing what your kind of triggers are in those different situations is first step.
Oh, it's so hard to pull back on that because you're like, I got to get the revenue. I got to get this. We got to get the deal across the finish line.
Yeah.
Um, wow, that's good though. Getting to know yourself and know those high pressure situations. Here's a comment from Russ Peterson. Thanks for joining us, Russ. Society and education unfortunately teaches us to follow, not lead. My new employees hesitate to use critical thinking because they have come from an environment to do this exactly in these steps, so they are conditioned to it.
Yeah.
How do you break that, Carrie?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I would say, I would go all the way back to, I mean, don't give up on the current staff members that you have. I think some of the things we already discussed around like first stopping your own habituation to jump in and solve the problems. I'm very explicit with my team. So I have conditions, we have norms for high performing teams, and like, here's what that looks like. And I'm very clear that my expectation is you have a sense of ownership. And that means I have to clarify the outcome you're responsible for. So if I don't say this is the outcome or the goal you're responsible for, and I'm focused more on task management, like these are the inputs and the things you're going to do every day, it's really difficult to get people into that self-starter, take initiative, like really drive something forward. So I have to say, this is the outcome. You have multiple different paths that you can get there, but at the end of the day, this is what I'm holding you accountable for, right? That's a key element there. And the other thing I would say is goes back to your recruiting process. So a good recruiting process, you're going to elicit these things already in terms of a culture fit, and are they going to have a strong sense of ownership. So performance tasks where you can see, do they not only do they step up and meet the bar, do they go above and beyond, right? Did they take initiative to actually, did they bring a different element or a different level of thinking where you're like, oh wow, like that's actually beyond what I had anticipated. That's a really good indicator that you have somebody that's going to be willing to have more of a sense of ownership. And the conversation, you have to have the conversation. There's a situation right now, just a couple of weeks ago. I think the background, the society, the culture that this particular employee comes from is very like waiting for leadership, waiting for management to kind of dictate, do this, do this, do this, do that. That is not going to work on our team, right? That's going to slow us down. So being willing to have those one-on-one conversations, Is this uncomfortable? Is this uncomfortable for you? Let's talk about how we can get comfortable with it. Like, these are my expectations. What do you need to move into this role? And at the end of the day, obviously, if somebody can't fulfill that without adding value and actually releasing pressure from you as the leader, it's time to reconsider. I think that we are always about growing leaders. And if we view everybody in our company as a potential leader and my job to grow them, senior management, middle management, however many levels down you have, that is the capacity booster. And that is like a really great culture creator for high performance culture.
I really like that perspective. Let's talk a little bit about building trust without risk, how to move from problem solver to capability builder through strategic delegation. I think you've touched on a few of those things right already with what you answered for Russ.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So I'm onboarding somebody new actually as we speak. And one of the things that she is going to be responsible for is pretty technical, and it's a very important. And it's the handover of a build brief, for building new marketing assets and things like that. And it's a lot of responsibility, because if it falls down in the communication of what needs to get created, well, you can imagine, campaigns get delayed, revenue gets delayed, everything gets delayed, right? And so in this sense, I had a choice this last week. I could have sent her the template and said, like, this is how we do this, go figure it out. And that would have not taken much time for me. But I was like, in the long run, I need her to really learn how to do this. So I said, here's the template. Here are some models. Do the best you can. We're going to check in 2 days. We're going to get on a call. We're going to look at it together. We're going to talk about warm feedback, cool feedback. You're going to revise it. And I gave it enough time where she could learn the process. What happens is that, especially if you're worried about revenue and you're trying to shortcut things, you steal that time from the person who needs to learn the skill. She can't learn it if I don't give her the opportunity, right? So a lot of it was saying to her, you're not going to get it right the first time. Like, it took me a long time to figure out how to communicate these things to other people. It's going to take you some time too, and that's okay. And that's the safety piece, is saying, this is a learning process. I expect you to screw up. I'm going to help you with it, and it's going to be a little bit easier the next time.
I like that time window, though, that you gave, that 2 days or whatever that time period is. That gives them, some confidence that they're going to be able to learn it. But I also like it from an employer's perspective in that, hey, I'm not completely out of the loop, and they're not going to go too far down the road without us making some corrections as needed. So that's these are great tips. I'm going to definitely rewatch this show when we're done. Let's jump over to the consciousness factor. We're almost at the top of the hour. Do you have a couple extra minutes if we go past?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. This is good stuff. The consciousness factor,
Mm-hmm.
how shifting your emotional state transforms leadership effectiveness and team performance.
Yeah. So when we say consciousness factor, another way to think about that is a particular emotion or feeling, right? So we have all these emotions. We have shame, we have anger, we have neutrality, which is really what it sounds like. Like, I'm not hot, I'm not cold, I'm just observing the situation. We have courage. Then we also have more elevated emotions, or what a lot of us call, and the research talks about, as higher levels of consciousness, like gratitude, for example. That is an elevated state. It's an elevated emotion, and it's an elevated state of mind, right? So that's what we're talking. Love is a very high frequency emotion, higher state of consciousness. Now, if I am reacting to my people, when I am in a state of anger, which is a very, very low level of consciousness, or when I'm in a state of shame, something went wrong and I'm feeling embarrassed about it, and probably subconsciously, like, I don't even know that I'm embarrassed about it. You can just imagine for a moment how my response or my reaction is going to be different than if I am just sitting back as an observer. I'm just neutral. I'm not panicked. I'm not freaking out. I'm assuming I don't have all of the information yet. I'm just neutral, right? I'm just like, I just need to kind of collect more information here. I'm going to respond very differently to my staff member. If I am in a state of gratitude, let's say something breaks. And by the way, everything I've communicated in the book and we're talking about today, please, everybody be aware, I've learned all of these lessons the hard way. These were very hard earned lessons myself. So now something breaks, we miss a target, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I did everything I could. Like, I thought we were on track, and we're like, holy cow, that was a big miss. And, I could either look at that and I could be angry, I could be upset, I could be in a panic, I could be shocked, I could be any of those things, low level of consciousness. Or once I practice these things enough, I could look at that as with gratitude. And I could say, I'm so glad that this happened right now in this iteration or phase of the business and with us collectively, because this is such a learning opportunity. And there's so much data for us to unpack here that we're going to be able to apply to the next situation and the next product we launch or the next service that we offer. And how am I going to be interacting to my employees when I'm in that state? Like, I'm glad this happened, because what are all the things that we've learned? Now they're like, hey, it's okay to screw up. It's okay to take risks. If you think about the competitive edge that every business needs right now, it's innovation, right? You need innovation and you need agility. Technology is kicking our butt and it is moving fast. So if you can't adapt and adjust and innovate on your products and services and do that in an agile way, you aren't going to survive. Well, for people to innovate, they need to know they can take risks. And they need to, when you take risks, you screw up, right? So being able to manage that level of consciousness in terms of what's happening in your business and how people are performing, it is your secret weapon. It underlies every single word that comes out of your mouth, thought that you have about the situation. And at the end of the day, there could have been a lot of things that another business owner maybe thinks, oh, that went wrong, right? This was, oh, terrible day, terrible day. I can't believe all these things went wrong. Okay. Is that really what you want to bring to your partner, your kids, your family, your life, your yoga class, whatever? Or do you want to end your day going like, all these opportunities we had to learn and to grow people and to just get better and to sharpen our tool? Like, what life do you want to live? And that's what we're talking about here, right? Like, how do you really want to show up and how do you want to experience life? And that all comes back to what level of consciousness you're choosing to operate it in any given situation.
The level of consciousness that you choose, do you think that there is benefit to having an executive engage in some sort of thought leadership, extra communication, expressing things about that level of consciousness that they're at, what they've felt, what they've learned? You alluded to before the younger generation of leaders. I see these folks on LinkedIn. I see them communicating, sharing their thoughts, sharing their successes and their failures. Do you think that helps in this process?
Oh, absolutely. Because you're modeling for your people vulnerability and candor and reflection. And how are those characteristics not good for a business? I'm the first person to say I screwed up, because I need you to do the same thing if it happens with something that you're responsible for. And I also need my team to know that you're human and it's okay. Like, one of our norms for our high performing team is, if we're not failing, we're not pushing ourselves. So you better be screwing up, because if you're not, you're playing it safe. And if you're playing it safe, I'm not interested in that. That's really quite boring and we're not going to be successful as a business.
Right. You're not
So
innovating.
yeah, exactly. And I'm not only giving myself permission to make mistakes, but we're giving each other permission to make mistakes, because this is life. Like, there's no sure bet, there's no playbook where you just follow the steps in the recipe and it's always going to turn out exactly the same way. That's just not how business and life works. We're always just taking calculated guesses based on past experience about what to do next. And it doesn't always turn out the way you think it will.
That's life, right? So we're a little past the top of the hour. Carrie, want you to also mention that you've got a new book coming out, and the name of the book is.
It's called Stop Being the Answer, the Leader's Playbook for Creating a Team That Thinks for Itself.
So follow Carrie on LinkedIn. Is there any other ways they can get a hold of you if they want to work with you and learn more about your approach?
Yeah, LinkedIn is fantastic. Also info@carrieladue.com. You can find me at that email address as well.
And Russ Peterson, you said you asked that great question before, and then your connection went out. This is recorded as a LinkedIn Live event. I'll also be posting it to Windbound's YouTube channel as well, so you can watch it there, because I know I'm going to rewatch it. This was really great stuff, Carrie, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's such a deep pleasure.
And thanks to everyone for attending, and we'll see you on the next episode.